Jake Morrison woke up at 5 in the morning like he did every day. The sun was not up yet, but he had work to do. His farm on New Haven Colony needed care, and the corn was almost ready for harvest. He put on his old boots and walked to the kitchen where his wife Mary was making coffee. "Morning, Jake," Mary said as she handed him a cup. "Looks like it might rain today." Jake looked out the window at the gray clouds. "Good. The corn needs water." He drank his coffee and ate 2 pieces of toast with jam. Mary packed his lunch in a metal box, scrambled eggs, bacon, and a sandwich. She always made sure he had enough food for the long day ahead. Jake walked outside and climbed into his old truck. The engine made noise but still worked after 15 years. He drove down the dirt road to his fields, watching the corn plants move in the wind. Everything looked normal until he reached the far field. Something big had crashed into his corn. The plants were flat and broken over a large area. Jake stopped his truck and got out. He had never seen anything like this before. The ground was burned in some places, and there were deep marks like something had dragged across the dirt. Then he saw it. A dragon lay in the middle of the broken corn. It was huge, bigger than his truck. Its scales were dark green but looked dull and dirty. Blood covered parts of its body, and one wing hung at a bad angle. The dragon was breathing, but each breath looked hard and painful. Jake had seen pictures of dragons in books, but this was different. This dragon looked tired and hurt and hungry. Its ribs showed through its skin, and its eyes were closed. Jake knew he should be afraid, but he felt sorry for the creature instead. He walked closer, step by step. The dragon's eyes opened when it heard him coming. They were gold like coins, but sad. The dragon tried to lift its head but could only raise it a little bit. "Easy there," Jake said in a quiet voice. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon stared at him. Jake could see fear in those gold eyes, but also something else. Hope, maybe. The dragon's mouth moved, and words came out. The voice was deep and rough like rocks falling. "Please," the dragon said, "do not call the soldiers. I will leave when I can move." Jake was surprised the dragon could talk. He knelt down next to the huge head, careful not to make fast moves. "You're hurt bad. And you look hungry. When did you last eat?" The dragon's eyes closed again. "Many days ago. I had food, but I lost it when my ship crashed." The dragon looked at Jake again. "You are not afraid?" "Should I be?" Jake asked. "You're hurt and can't move. You're not going to bite me." The dragon made a sound that might have been a laugh. "My name is Korath. I was a warrior. Now I am nothing." "Well, Korath, I'm Jake Morrison. This is my farm you crashed into." Jake opened his lunchbox and took out the container of scrambled eggs. "You hungry?" Korath stared at the food. His nose moved as he smelled it. I have no money to pay you. I have nothing left." Jake smiled. "Did I ask for money?" He held out the container. "Go ahead. Eat." Korath lifted his head with great effort. "May I have leftovers, sir?" he asked, his voice full of shame and hope. Jake's heart felt heavy when he heard those words. This proud creature was asking for scraps like a dog. "These aren't leftovers," Jake said firmly. "This is food, and you need it more than I do." He held the container closer to Korath's mouth. The dragon ate slowly, carefully, like he couldn't believe the food was real. When the eggs were gone, Jake gave him the bacon and then the sandwich. Korath ate everything while tears ran from his golden eyes. "Thank you," Korath whispered. "I have not known kindness in so long." Jake stood up and brushed dirt off his pants. "Wait here. I'm going to get more food and something for those cuts." "You would help me more?" Korath asked. "But you do not know me. I could be dangerous." Jake looked down at the injured dragon. "Maybe you could be dangerous when you're healthy. Right now, you're just hungry and hurt. And my mama taught me to help folks who need help." Jake drove back to his house as fast as his old truck would go. Mary was working in her garden when he pulled up. "Mary!" he called out. "I need all the food we can spare, and get the animal medicine box." Mary stood up, dirt on her hands. "What's wrong, Jake?" "There's a dragon in our field. He's hurt bad and starving." Mary dropped her gardening tools. "A dragon? Jake, that's dangerous. We should call the colony office." "No," Jake said as he ran into the house. "He's not dangerous. He's just scared and hungry." He started pulling food from the refrigerator. Leftover chicken, bread, cheese, apples, everything he could find. Mary followed him inside. "Jake Morrison, have you lost your mind?" Jake stopped and looked at his wife. "Mary, if you saw a hurt dog on the road, would you help it?" "Of course. But this isn't a dog. It's a dragon." "So what?" Jake filled a big bag with food. "He's still a living thing that needs help. And he said please and called me sir. When's the last time anyone was that polite to you?" Mary shook her head but helped him pack more food. She also got the medical supplies they used for their animals. "If this dragon eats us, I'm going to be very upset with you." Jake kissed her cheek. "He won't eat us. Trust me." He drove back to the field with enough food to feed 10 people. Korath was still lying in the broken corn, but his eyes were alert now. When he saw Jake coming with bags of food, the dragon's eyes went wide. "Told you I would come back," Jake said. He set the food down near Korath's head. "Eat as much as you want." As Korath ate, Jake looked at his wounds. Some were deep cuts, others looked like burns. He cleaned them as best he could and put medicine on them like he would for a hurt cow or horse. "Why do you help me?" Korath asked between bites of chicken. Jake sat down in the dirt next to the dragon's head. "Because you needed help and I could give it. Doesn't seem complicated to me." Korath studied Jake's face for a long time. "Your species is strange," he said finally. "Maybe," Jake said, "but strange isn't always bad." The dragon finished eating and closed his eyes. For the first time in days, Korath felt full and safe. This human with dirty boots and kind eyes had done something no one else had done. He had looked at a dragon and seen not a monster or a weapon, but just someone who needed help. Jake sat with Korath until the sun went down, talking about farming and weather and simple things. Neither of them knew that this meeting would change everything. The next morning, Jake woke up thinking about the dragon in his field. He ate breakfast quickly and loaded his truck with more food and water. Mary packed extra sandwiches and soup in a thermos. "How long are you planning to feed that dragon?" Mary asked as she watched Jake fill containers. "Until he's strong enough to leave, I guess," Jake said. "Or until he doesn't want to leave." Mary shook her head. "You always were too soft-hearted for your own good." When Jake reached the field, Korath was awake and sitting up. The dragon looked much better after a night of rest and a full belly. His scales had some shine to them now, and his eyes were brighter. "Good morning, Jake Morrison," Korath said. His voice was stronger today. "Morning, Korath. How are you feeling?" "Better. The food and medicine helped." Korath looked at the new bags Jake was carrying. "You brought more food. Figured you might be hungry again." Jake set down the bags and opened one. "Got some soup here that's still hot." Korath drank the soup from the thermos cap, which looked tiny in his huge claws. "Jake Morrison, I must tell you something. I am not just a traveler who crashed. I am a refugee." Jake sat down on an old log. "What are you running from?" "My own kind," Korath said sadly. "There is a war among dragons. My clan believed we should make peace with other species. The ruling clans said we were traitors. They destroyed our homes and killed many of us." "So you came to human space?" "I had nowhere else to go. My ship was damaged and I was running out of fuel and food. I thought if I could reach the outer colonies I might find work or hide until the war ended." Jake listened while Korath told his story. The dragon had been a soldier once, fighting for his clan's beliefs. When the war turned against them, The survivors scattered across the galaxy. Some went to alien worlds, others tried to hide in space. Korath had heard humans might be willing to trade with dragons, so he came here. But my ship failed, Korath continued. The engines died, and I crashed into your field. I thought I would die here alone. Well, you didn't die, Jake said, and you're not alone. Over the next few days, Jake visited Korath every morning and evening. He brought food, changed the bandages on the dragon's wounds, and they talked about many things. Korath told Jake about other worlds and space travel. Jake told Korath about farming and life on New Haven. Your work is important, Korath said one evening as they watched the sunset. Growing food feeds people. That is a good thing to do with your life. Never thought about it that way, Jake said. It's just what I know how to do. On my world, warriors get honor and praise, but farmers get little respect. Yet without farmers, warriors would starve. Korath looked at Jake with his golden eyes. You do more good than many warriors I knew. After a week, Jake brought Mary and their daughter Lucy to meet Korath. Mary was nervous at first, but Korath was polite and gentle with them. Lucy, who was 16 and afraid of nothing, asked Korath 100 questions about dragons and space. Can you really breathe fire? Lucy asked. Yes, but I do not use it as a weapon. It is for cooking food and staying warm. To show her, Korath breathed a small flame that heated the air but hurt nothing. Lucy clapped her hands. That's amazing! Could you help us clear the dead brush from the back field? Lucy, Mary said. Korath is recovering from injuries. I would be happy to help, Korath said. Jake Morrison has been kind to me. I wish to return that kindness. The next day, Korath used his fire breath to burn away dead plants and weeds that Jake had been planning to clear by hand. The job that would have taken Jake weeks was done in hours. Korath was careful to burn only what needed burning and to keep the fire from spreading. This is much easier with your help, Jake said as they worked together. It feels good to be useful again, Korath replied. I was beginning to think I had no purpose left. Word spread quickly through the small farming community that Jake Morrison was keeping a dragon on his land. Some neighbors were scared and wanted the colony officials to remove Korath. Others were curious and came to see for themselves. Old Henry Burke, who owned the farm next to Jake's, visited one afternoon. He found Korath carefully moving rocks that had fallen from a broken wall, piling them neatly so Henry could rebuild the wall later. Heard you were some kind of monster, Henry said to Korath. Some of my kind would say I am, Korath replied. I chose peace over war. To them, that makes me weak. Henry watched Korath work. The dragon was gentle with the stones, making sure not to damage anything else. Don't look weak to me. Take strength to choose what's right instead of what's easy. After Henry left, more neighbors came to visit. Betty Collins brought soup and stayed to talk with Korath about medicine. She was the closest thing the colony had to a doctor, and she was interested in how dragon healing worked. Carl Watson asked Korath to help fix his barn roof, which was too high for the old man to reach safely. You sure know how to make friends, Jake said as he watched Korath carefully place new roof boards while Carl directed from below. These are good people, Korath said. They judge me by my actions, not by what I am. But not everyone was happy about Korath's presence. Pete Harrison, who ran the colony's government office, came to Jake's farm one morning with 2 security guards. Morrison, this has gone far enough, Harrison said. You can't keep an alien creature on your property without proper permits. This dragon needs to be turned over to the colonial authority. Jake stood between Harrison and Korath, who was helping Lucy repair a fence. He's not bothering anyone. He's been helping with work around here. That's not the point. We don't know if he's dangerous. He could be a spy or a criminal. Korath heard the conversation and walked over. Harrison's guards stepped back when they saw how big the dragon was, but Korath sat down to make himself less threatening. Administrator Harrison, Korath said politely, I understand your concerns. I am indeed a refugee, but I am not dangerous to your people. I ask only for shelter until I am healed enough to travel." Harrison looked nervous but tried to sound official. "It doesn't matter what you want. There are rules about undocumented aliens. You need to come with us for processing." "He stays," Jake said firmly. "This is my land, and Korath is my guest. Morrison, I can have you arrested for harboring an illegal alien." "Then you'll have to arrest half the colony," said a voice behind Harrison. The administrator turned to see Henry Burke, Betty Collins, Carl Watson, and a dozen other neighbors walking up the road to Jake's farm. "This dragon has helped all of us," Henry said. "He fixed my wall, helped Carl with his roof, and taught my grandson how to identify good soil. If you want to arrest Jake, you'll have to arrest us too." Harrison looked at the crowd of farmers and workers standing together. He had expected to find a dangerous alien that everyone would want removed. Instead, he found a community that had adopted a dragon as one of their own. "This isn't over," Harrison said as he and his guards left. "I'm reporting this to the planetary government." After Harrison was gone, the neighbors stayed to talk with Jake and Korath. They had come not just to support Jake, but because they genuinely cared about what happened to Korath. "Thank you all," Korath said. "I have not had a home or friends in a long time. You have given me both." "You're family now," Lucy said simply. "That's what families do." That evening, as Jake and Korath sat watching the stars, the dragon asked a question that had been bothering him. "Jake Morrison, why did you help me that first day? You knew nothing about me except that I was different." Jake thought for a moment. "My grandfather used to say that you can tell what kind of person someone is by how they treat folks who can't do anything for them. You were hurt and hungry and I could help. That's all that mattered." Korath nodded slowly. "Your grandfather was wise, and you are a good student." Neither of them knew that Harrison's report had already reached the planetary capital, and that bigger problems were coming their way. 3 weeks after Pete Harrison's visit, a big ship landed at the colony's spaceport. Jake was working in his field with Korath when they saw it fly overhead. The ship was white and clean, with official government markings. "That's not a supply ship," Jake said, watching the ship land in the distance. Korath looked worried. "It appears my presence here has drawn attention." The next morning, Jake found official vehicles parked outside his house. A woman in a neat uniform stood by the cars, talking with several people in suits. When she saw Jake, she walked over and held out her hand. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Ambassador Elena Rodriguez from the Galactic Council. I'd like to speak with you about your dragon friend." Jake shook her hand carefully. "Is Korath in trouble?" "That depends on what I find here," Elena said. "I've received reports that you're harboring an undocumented alien refugee. That's a serious matter." "He's not doing anything wrong," Jake said. "He's been helping around the farm and getting better from his injuries." "I understand. But there are laws about alien contact, especially with species we haven't had formal relations with. May I meet this dragon?" Jake led Elena and her team to the field where Korath was carefully harvesting corn. The dragon moved slowly down the rows, picking only the ripe ears and placing them gently in baskets. When he saw the official visitors, he stopped working and walked over. "You must be Ambassador Rodriguez," Korath said with a slight bow. "I am Korath, formerly of the Stellar Dominion. I apologize if my presence here has caused problems." Elena studied the dragon carefully. She had expected to find either a dangerous creature being foolishly sheltered by naive colonists, or evidence that humans were somehow taking advantage of an alien refugee. Instead, she found a polite dragon doing farm work. "I need to ask you some questions, Korath. Are you here against your will?" "No, Ambassador. I crashed here by accident, but I stay by choice. Jake Morrison and his family have been kind to me." "Have the humans asked you to work for them? Do they pay you?" Korath looked confused. "They ask nothing of me. I work because I wish to help them, as they have helped me. Jake Morrison saved my life and asks for nothing in return." Elena spent the morning interviewing Jake, Mary, Lucy, and several neighbors. Everyone told the same story. Korath had arrived. Injured and hungry, Jake had helped him, and the dragon had chosen to stay and help with farm work while he healed. "He fixed my barn roof," Carl Watson told Elena. "Didn't ask for anything, just saw it needed doing and did it." "He taught the children about the stars," Betty Collins added. "My grandson knows more about space now than most adults." That afternoon, Elena watched Korath work with the community. The dragon was helping to build a new fence around the school playground. He held the heavy posts steady while human workers secured them in place. When a little girl fell and scraped her knee, Korath gently helped her up and carried her to her mother. "This isn't what I expected," Elena admitted to Jake, as they watched Korath show a group of children how to identify different types of rocks. "What did you expect?" "Either a dangerous alien that needed to be contained or evidence that humans were exploiting a refugee for cheap labor." Elena shook her head. "Instead, I find something I've never seen before, which is true cooperation between species. Most alien contact involves trade, politics, or conflict, but this is just friendship." That evening, Elena asked to speak with Korath privately. They sat by the river that ran through Jake's property, watching the water flow. In the moonlight, "Korath, I need to understand something. Your species has a reputation as proud warriors. Yet here you are, doing farm work and living quietly with humans. Doesn't this conflict with your culture?" Korath was quiet for a long time. "My people believe strength comes from conquest and dominance. I believed that too once, but I have learned that true strength comes from choosing to help others, even when you gain nothing from it." "How did you learn that?" "From Jake Morrison. He had no reason to help me. I was a stranger, a different species, potentially dangerous. But he saw that I was hurt and hungry, and he chose kindness. That took more courage than any battle I ever fought." Elena nodded. "The reports I received suggested you might be a security threat, or that the humans were somehow controlling you." "The only thing controlling me is my own choice to stay where. I am valued for who I am, not what I can destroy." The next day brought a crisis that would test everyone's commitment to their new friendship. A severe storm hit the colony, bringing high winds and flooding rain. The river rose quickly, threatening to flood the low-lying farms where many families lived. Jake woke up to someone pounding on his door. It was Henry Burke, soaking wet and worried. "Jake, the river's rising fast. The Patterson family is trapped in their house, and the road is already flooded. We need help getting them out." Jake grabbed his raincoat. "I'll get the truck." "Truck won't make it through that water," Henry said. "It's too deep and moving too fast." Korath appeared in the doorway, already awake from the noise. "I can help," he said. "I'm large enough to walk through deep water and strong enough to carry people." "That's dangerous," Jake said. "If you slip in that current, you could be swept away." "Then I will not slip," Korath said simply. "The Patterson family has children. They need help." For the next 6 hours, Korath waded through the floodwaters, carrying families to safety. He moved carefully, testing each step, his great weight keeping him stable in the rushing water. Jake and other colonists worked with him, using ropes and boats where they could. But it was Korath who reached the places humans could not go. Elena and her team helped however they could, but mostly they watched in amazement as a dragon risked his life to save human families he barely knew. When old Mrs. Patterson cried and hugged Korath's massive leg after he carried her to safety, Elena understood something important. This wasn't just a dragon living among humans. This was a community that had grown to include a member of a completely different species. The dragon wasn't hiding among them or being protected by them. He was one of them. When the storm passed and the water went down, the colony gathered to check on everyone and assess the damage. 3 houses had been flooded, but no one was hurt. Thanks to Korath's help, everyone had been evacuated safely. "I can't believe that dragon carried my whole family through that flood," Bill Patterson said to anyone who would listen. My little girl wasn't even scared. She said Korath was like a big, friendly boat. Elena watched Korath help clean mud from the flooded houses. His careful claws were surprisingly good at detailed work, and he never complained about the dirty job. This was definitely not what she had expected to find when she came to investigate an alien incident. That evening, Elena called Jake aside for a private conversation. "Mr. Morrison, I came here prepared to either arrest you for harboring an illegal alien or to remove Korath for processing and resettlement. After what I've seen, I can't do either." "What do you mean?" "I mean Korath isn't just a refugee anymore. He's a member of your community. Removing him would be like taking away someone's father or brother." Jake smiled. "That's exactly what it would be like." "But there are still legal issues? Korath has no official status. He can't stay here indefinitely without proper documentation." "So what do we do?" Elena thought for a moment. "We make this official. I'm going to recommend that Korath be granted permanent resident status as a cultural exchange participant. It's unusual, but what I've witnessed here is unusual too. He can stay, but there will be conditions. Regular check-ins, cultural reports, things like that. And this arrangement will be studied by xenobiologists and diplomats. Is that acceptable?" Jake looked over at Korath, who was teaching Lucy's younger cousin how to stack sandbags properly. "I'll ask him, but I think he'll be fine with that." When Jake told Korath about Elena's offer, the dragon was quiet for a long time. "You could have a real home here," Jake said. "Legal and everything." "I already have a real home," Korath replied. "This just makes it official." Elena stayed for another week, documenting everything she could about the human dragon community. She interviewed dozens of people, took pictures, and wrote detailed reports. When she finally left, she promised to return in 6 months to check on how things were going. "You know this changes everything, don't you?" Elena said to Jake before she left. "Once word gets out about what you've accomplished here, other species are going to want to try the same thing." "Is that bad?" "Not bad. Just big. You've proven that different species can live and work together as equals. That's going to reshape how the galaxy thinks about alien relations." Jake looked puzzled. "We just helped someone who needed help. Doesn't seem that complicated," Elena smiled. "That's exactly what makes it so remarkable." After Elena left, life returned to normal for the farming community. Korath continued helping with farm work and had officially become the community's expert on soil science and star navigation. But everyone knew that their quiet life was about to become much more complicated. The dragon and the farmer had created something new in the galaxy, a true partnership between species. Soon, everyone would want to know how they had done it. 2 months after Ambassador Rodriguez left, Jake was fixing a broken fence when he saw ships in the sky. But these weren't the clean white ships of the Galactic Council. These were dark and angular, with weapon ports visible along their hulls. Dragon ships. Korath was helping Jake with the fence when the ships appeared. The dragon stopped working and stared up at the sky, his golden eyes filled with worry. "Those are draconic Imperial warships," Korath said quietly. "They have found me." Jake set down his tools. "Are you in danger?" "We all are," Korath replied. "If they are here for me, they will not care about human lives." The ships landed at the colony's spaceport with loud thunder and clouds of smoke. Within an hour, Colony Administrator Pete Harrison arrived at Jake's farm with news that made everyone's blood run cold. "Morrison, you need to turn over that dragon immediately," Harrison said, trying to hide his fear. "The dragon commander wants to speak with their missing warrior." "What did you tell them?" Jake asked. "I told them the dragon was here voluntarily and was under Galactic Council protection. They laughed at me." Harrison wiped sweat from his face. Morrison, these aren't like the council officials. These dragons are soldiers and they look angry. Jake looked at Korath. What do you want to do? I will go with them, Korath said. I will not let them hurt your people because of me. Like hell you will, Jake said firmly. You're family now. We don't abandon family. Mary and Lucy arrived, just as a group of armored dragons marched up the road to the farm. The dragons were huge, even bigger than Korath, and they wore metal armor that gleamed in the sunlight. Their leader was massive, with scars across his face and cold, dark eyes. The dragon leader stopped in front of Jake's house and spoke in a voice like an earthquake. I am Lord Commander Vexthar of the Imperial Fleet. Where is the traitor Korath? Jake stepped forward even though the dragon commander was 3 times his size. Korath lives here, but he's no traitor. He's a member of this community. Vexthar laughed, a sound like rocks falling. A dragon living with humans? Working in dirt? Like a slave? This is worse than I thought. He looked past Jake to where Korath stood quietly by the fence. Korath of the Stellar Dominion, you will come with us now. I will not, Korath said calmly. I choose to stay here. You choose? Vexthar's voice rose to a roar. You are a dragon warrior. You do not choose to serve lesser species. I do not serve them, Korath replied. I live with them as an equal. They have taught me things about honor that I never learned in war. Honor? Vexthar spat flame into the air. You speak of honor while you dig in mud with these weak creatures? Jake felt his anger rising. These dragons could insult him all they wanted, but they would not insult his friends and neighbors. There's nothing weak about working hard to feed your family and help your community. Vexthar turned his dark eyes on Jake. Silence, human. Adults are speaking. I am speaking, Jake said, not backing down. This is my land, and Korath is my friend. You want him? You'll have to go through me. The dragon commander studied Jake for a long moment. Here was a small human, not even reaching to the dragon's chest, standing up to a creature that could destroy him with one breath of fire. It was either very brave or very stupid. You would die for this traitor? Vexthar asked. I would die for my friend, Jake replied. Behind Jake, Mary and Lucy stood with him. Soon Henry Burke arrived, then Carl Watson, then Betty Collins, then dozens of other colonists. They all stood together, facing the dragon warriors. All of you would die for. One dragon? Vexthar seemed confused by this. All of us would die for one friend, Henry Burke said. Doesn't matter if he's human or dragon. Korath walked forward to stand beside Jake. Lord Commander, I challenge the honor of your mission. Vexthar's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? You call me a traitor for choosing peace over war. But look around you. These humans have shown me more honor in a few months than I saw in years of fighting for the Empire. They share their food with strangers. They risk their lives to save neighbors. They judge others by their actions, not their species. Sentiment, Vexthar growled. Warriors do not need such weakness. Is it weakness to help someone who is hurt? Is it weakness to build rather than destroy? Is it weakness to choose kindness when you could choose cruelty? Korath's voice grew stronger with each question. If so, then I choose weakness over the Empire's strength. Vexthar looked around at the crowd of humans standing with Korath. He had expected to find a degraded dragon living as a slave among primitive beings. Instead, he found something that challenged everything he believed about strength and honor. You have been corrupted by these humans, Vexthar said. You are no longer worthy to be called dragon. Perhaps not, Korath agreed. But I am worthy to be called friend. The confrontation was interrupted by the arrival of more ships. These were Galactic Council vessels, led by Ambassador Rodriguez's ship. Elena herself stepped out, flanked by Council peacekeepers and several alien diplomats. Lord Commander Vexthar, Elena called out as she approached. This is a colony under Galactic Council protection. You cannot remove anyone by force. The dragon is our citizen, Vexthar replied. We reclaim our own. Korath has requested asylum and has been granted preliminary refugee status. Any attempt to remove him would be an act of war against the Council. Vexthar laughed. The Council would not go to war over one dragon. They would go to war over the principle, Elena said firmly. The right of any being to choose where they live and who they live with is fundamental to Council law. Jake watched the standoff between the Council forces and the Dragon fleet. Both sides had weapons, and both sides looked ready to use them. But this was about more than one dragon now. This was about whether different species could choose to live together in peace. Wait, Jake said, stepping between the two groups. There's got to be a better way to settle this. Jake Morrison, this is not your concern, Elena said. Yes, it is, Jake replied. It's about Korath, which makes it my concern, and it's about whether we're going to solve this with talking or with fighting. He turned to face Vexthar. Lord Commander, you say Korath has lost his honor by living with humans, but what if you're wrong? What if he's found a different kind of honor? Explain, Vexthar growled. Give us 1 month, Jake said. Stay here, watch how we live, see what Korath does. If after 1 month you still think he's been dishonored, he'll go with you willingly. Won't you, Korath? Korath looked surprised, but nodded. I will agree to this. And if I decide he has been corrupted beyond saving, Vexthar asked, then you take him, Jake said simply. But if you decide we're not what you thought we were, maybe you consider that there are different ways to live with honor. Elena started to protest, but Jake held up his hand. Ambassador, this is between Korath and his people. Let them work it out. Vexthar studied Jake's face. The human was offering to risk losing his friend in order to avoid a war. That showed either great foolishness or great wisdom. The dragon commander was curious to see which it was. 1 month, Vexthar agreed, but my warriors and I will stay to observe. If we find any evidence that Korath is being controlled or mistreated, we will act immediately. Fair enough, Jake said, but you have to really observe. Not just look for what you expect to see, but really watch and learn. That night, the dragon warriors made camp near the colony. The humans were nervous about having armed aliens so close, but Jake asked everyone to try to treat them like guests, even uninvited ones. This is crazy, Mary said, as she helped Jake prepare extra food. You just invited a bunch of warriors to judge whether our way of life is good enough. It's the only way to avoid a fight, Jake replied. And maybe it's time someone showed them that there's more to life than war. What if they decide to take Korath anyway? Jake looked out the window at their dragon friend, who was sitting by the river, staring at the stars. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I have faith in what we've built here. If they really look at it with open eyes, they'll see what we see. The next morning would begin the strangest month in the colony's history. Dragons and humans would live side by side, each group watching the other, learning things that would change how they saw the galaxy. The test had begun. The first week was tense. The dragon warriors watched everything with suspicious eyes, looking for signs that the humans were somehow controlling Korath or that he was being forced to work. They followed him around the farm, watched him eat, meals with the Morrison family, and observed his interactions with the colonists. Lord Commander Vexthar was particularly puzzled by what he saw. Korath worked hard, but no one ordered him to work. He helped with farm chores, repaired equipment, and spent time teaching human children about astronomy. But it was all voluntary. Why do you work without being commanded? Vexthar asked Korath one morning as they watched the dragon help Jake harvest apples. Because the work needs doing, and I can help, Korath replied. Jake Morrison worked hard to feed me when I was injured. Now I help him because I want to. But you gain nothing from this labor. I gain much. I have a home, friends, purpose. What more could I want? Vexthar had no answer for that. In Dragon Society, you worked because you were ordered to or because you were paid to. The idea of working simply to help others was foreign to him. The second week brought changes. Some of the dragon warriors started talking to the colonists. It began when young Betty Collins approached one of the dragons who was standing guard near the school. "Are you hot in all that armor?" she asked the warrior, whose name was Draketh. Draketh was startled. No one had spoken directly to him except his commanders. Yes, it is warm today." "Would you like some cold water?" "I have extra." Draketh accepted the water gratefully. It led to a conversation about the weather, then about the differences between dragon and human worlds. Before long, Draketh was visiting the school regularly, fascinated by how human children learned. Other dragons began to follow Draketh's example. They helped when colonists needed heavy lifting done. They shared stories about other worlds around evening fires. They learned human games and taught dragon songs in return. Vexthar watched these interactions with growing confusion. His warriors were supposed to be maintaining military discipline, but instead they were making friends with the humans. Worse, they seemed to be enjoying it. The turning point came in the third week. A little girl named Amy Chen got lost in the forest while picking berries with her family. When her parents realized she was missing, the whole colony organized search parties. Humans and dragons worked together, calling Amy's name and looking under every bush and behind every tree. It was Draketh who found her. The little girl had fallen into a small ravine and couldn't climb out. She was scared and crying when Draketh's keen dragon senses located her. "Are you hurt, small one?" Draketh asked gently as he lifted Amy from the ravine. "I scraped my knee," Amy said, no longer afraid now that she was safe. "But it doesn't hurt much." Draketh carried Amy back to her worried parents, walking carefully to avoid jostling her injured knee. When Amy's mother saw her daughter safe in the dragon's arms, she burst into tears of relief. "Thank you," Amy's father said to Draketh. "Thank you for bringing her home." "Any parent would do the same," Draketh replied, carefully setting Amy down. Vexthar watched this scene with new eyes. He saw a dragon warrior, trained for battle, being thanked by humans for an act of simple kindness. He saw his soldiers' pride in having helped, not in having conquered or destroyed, but in having saved a child. That night, Vexthar sat alone, thinking about everything he had witnessed. His warriors were happier than he had seen them in years. They laughed with humans, shared meals, and worked together on projects that helped the community. None of them seemed weakened by these interactions. If anything, they seemed stronger. "You look troubled, Lord Commander," said a voice behind him. Vexthar turned to see Jake Morrison approaching with 2 cups of coffee. "Your human drink," Jake offered, sitting down beside the massive dragon. Vexthar accepted the coffee carefully, his claws tiny against the ceramic cup. "I am confused," he admitted. "About what?" "About what I have seen here. My warriors are acting like—" Vexthar struggled for the words. "Like friends?" Jake suggested. "Yes, like friends. In our society, warriors do not befriend other species. They conquer them, or they avoid them." Jake sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "What if there's a third option?" "Which is?" "Living with them. Working together. Building something better than what either side could make alone." Vexthar looked around. The colony. Humans and dragons were cleaning up after the day's search for Amy. They worked together naturally, each doing what they did best. The dragons provided strength and keen senses, while the humans provided organization and local knowledge. "Your people are not what I expected," Vexthar said. "What did you expect?" "Weakness, fear, submission. Instead, I find courage, kindness, and strength I did not recognize." Jake nodded. "Different kinds of strength. We don't win by being the biggest or the strongest. We win by working together and taking care of each other." "And you believe this makes you strong?" I know it does. When that storm hit and people were trapped by the flood, everyone worked together to save lives. Rich, poor, young, old, didn't matter. We were all part of the same community. That's stronger than any army. The final week of the test brought a crisis that would prove Jake's words. A fire started in the forest near the colony, spread by high winds and dry conditions. The flames moved fast toward the farming area where families lived and worked. The colony's firefighting equipment was old and limited. They had water pumps and fire-resistant foam, but not enough to stop a major forest fire. As the flames grew, bigger and moved closer, it looked like many homes would be lost. "We need to evacuate," Pete Harrison announced over the colony's communication system. "Everyone should gather at the spaceport. It's the only area that's completely safe from fire." But Jake had a different idea. "What if we fight it?" he asked Vexthar. "Your dragons can fly and breathe fire. Could they help create fire breaks?" Vexthar considered this. Fire-breathing dragons fighting fire? It seems contradictory. "Not fighting fire with fire," Jake explained. "Using controlled fire to create barriers the wildfire can't cross. Burning strips of ground ahead of the main fire so it has nothing left to burn." It was a dangerous plan. The dragons would have to fly close to the flames and use their fire breath with precise control. One mistake could make the fire worse instead of better. "I will not order my warriors to risk their lives for human property," Vexthar said. "You don't have to order them," Jake replied. "Ask for volunteers." Every single dragon warrior volunteered. For the next 12 hours, dragons and humans worked together to fight the forest fire. The dragons flew dangerous missions over the flames, creating fire breaks with careful burns. Humans operated water pumps and foam sprayers, supporting the dragons' efforts from the ground. Korath worked alongside his former military comrades, using his knowledge of the local area to guide their firebreak strategy. Draketh coordinated, with human spotters to identify the most dangerous areas. Other dragons carried water and supplies to human firefighters who couldn't be reached by truck. When a sudden wind shift threatened to trap a group of human firefighters, it was Vexthar himself who flew through thick smoke to carry them to safety. When Draketh's wing was injured by flying debris, it was human medic Betty Collins who treated his wounds. By dawn, the fire was contained. The colony was saved, and no lives were lost. Exhausted humans and dragons sat together, sharing water and food as they watched the sun rise over the smoke-stained landscape. "I have never seen anything like this," Vexthar said to Jake, as they watched dragons and humans help each other clean soot from their eyes and tend to minor injuries. "Like, what?" "Two species working as one, each contributing their strengths, each protecting the other's weaknesses. This is not conquest or submission. This is..." Vexthar searched for the right word. "Partnership," Jake said simply. Vexthar nodded slowly. "Yes, partnership." That afternoon, Vexthar called his warriors together for the formal end of their observation. Period. The humans gathered too, wondering what the dragon commander would decide about Korath's fate. "I came here believing that Korath had been dishonored by living among humans," Vexthar announced. "I was wrong. He has not lost his honor. He has found a new way to live with honor." The crowd murmured with relief, but Vexthar wasn't finished. "I also came here believing that humans were weak creatures who would corrupt dragon values. I was wrong about that too. Humans are not weak. They are strong in ways I did not understand. They are strong enough to be kind to strangers, strong enough to help others without asking for reward, strong enough to stand up for their friends even when facing superior force." Vexthar looked directly at Jake. "You offered to risk losing your friend to avoid a war. That took courage I did not expect from a farmer." "Any of my neighbors would have done the same," Jake replied. "Yes," Vexthar said. "I believe they would. And that is what makes you strong." The dragon commander turned to Korath. "You may stay here if you choose. You have found something here that our empire has never offered, a chance to be valued for who you are, not just what you can destroy. Thank you, Lord Commander, Korath said with a bow. But, Vexthar continued, I ask permission for some of my warriors to remain as well. They wish to learn more about this way of living. Jake smiled. They're welcome to stay as long as they want. 6 months later, the colony had grown to include 12 dragons living and working alongside human families. Drac,